Welcome to the Schweitzer Fellowship Celebration of Service 2021. While we wish we could gather in person, the truth is we still have the Schweitzer spirit. And the Schweitzer spirit to me means that you work tirelessly for health equity, you practice servant leadership, and you commit yourself to service to the community. We're going to begin with a special performance by the Prairie View Singers, and then we're going to hear remarks from Dr. Ruth J. Simmons, our Humanitarian of the Year, current president of Prairie View A&M University. Then we're going to hear from Pancho Arguelles, the former head of the Living Hope Wheelchair Association and our Servant Leader of the Year. And then we're going to actually visit sites where fellows are hard at work so you can see the impact on the community and on the agency that they're serving. We're also going to hear from stakeholders talking about the experience they've had with the Schweitzer Fellowship and how it's increased the capacity of their community agency. And finally, we're going to hear from the fellows themselves talking about what a transformative process this has been. Welcome, and we're glad you're here. The Schweitzer Fellowship would like to thank all of the sponsors of the Celebration of Service. First, our Champions of Service, HEB, and the Jacobson Family Foundation. Next, our education advocates, Friend of the Fellowship, and Ken and Janie Valak. Our partners in equity, Children at Risk, Community Health Choice, Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center,
Deloitte, Legacy Community Health, Amity Bank, Memorial Hermann, Plains Capital Bank, Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston, the University of Houston College of Medicine, the UT Health School of Public Health, and the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. We'd also like to thank Uzma and Tariq Iqbal, Richard and Andrea Link, David Kahn and Judith Margolin. Our sponsors make the work of the fellowship possible. We are deeply grateful. We hope you're starting to get a better sense of what the Schweitzer Fellowship is all about. By giving to the fellowship, you're not only having an immediate impact on the most vulnerable in our community, but you're ensuring that we have a cohort of trained, compassionate, and skilled health leaders who are committed to a life of service and providing their patients whole person care. You know, this is a transformative experience for our fellows, but we cannot do this without your help. Would you please consider joining me and supporting the fellows and the work that they do in the community? Because we know the Schweitzer Fellowship works.
I am conducting a project in conjunction with Brazos County Health District, and we're focusing on increasing vaccination rates for Black residents in Bryan College Station.
My partner Eric and I are working on a preventative program for congestive heart failure patients. So at St. Vincent's behind us, we already have an acute care program for patients with congestive heart failure who are discharged from the hospital. But our program is really dealing with the underlying risk factors of congestive heart failure.
We are the Congestive Heart Failure Clinic here at St. Vincent's Student Clinic. And kind of the goal of our project is to reduce 30-day readmissions for our patients. So we serve unfunded patients, so patients who have no health insurance. And we try to give them the sources that they need to improve their quality of life and kind of get them past this readmission risk.
My project is focused on adding food insecurity screening to St. Vincent's Clinic, which is a free clinic here in Galveston. The long-term goal is to create a system that addresses the social determinants of health in the population served by St. Vincent's and create a sustainable system to connect them to community resources. Because if your basic needs like food are not being met, it's really hard to manage the complicated medical conditions that our patients have. So my project right now is working with heart failure patients, but we hope to expand to some of the other specialty clinics as the project develops.
Meeting people from other specialties, I think in the context of Schweitzer, is really enriching because you get to, there's lots of points where you can talk about your project. I'm from public health, so we often think of a comprehensive approach, but sometimes you need people to remind you of some of the details that you might be forgetting, or they might need you to think about, okay, what does this mean in a hospital context, or what might people need to do to get to your program? There's lots of back and forth, I think, which is very helpful, and you just get to learn more about other fields and how they operate and how they lead, which is really interesting.
So with the fellowship, I've already been able to develop relationships with other fellows. We have group meets, we exchange lessons learned, we talk about our challenges, we talk about our successes, and with that, we're really able to learn from one another and kind of take the lessons that someone else may have learned and apply it to our project.
Yeah, so the name of our project is the Street Medicine Team, and really we just kind of go out in a team and kind of connect to the community.
I cannot imagine doing this without the Schweitzer Fellowship. You know, all of the monthly reports, all of the mentor meetings, talking to professionals who do this at nonprofits or doctorates who this is their life's work. You know, it makes such a daunting task seem doable.
So it all started probably in middle school. I was experiencing homelessness in Philadelphia, and I have some experience of kind of the struggles they're going through. A couple of years ago, I was in a junior, and we had this Army training, and we're out in the boonies getting rained on, tornadoed for 3 months. And I know the feeling that they're going through whenever they're outside, you know, sweating it up, just trying to struggle to eat. I've experienced that myself, and I really do not want anyone to experience that.
I always start with a patient's story. I think that's really the heart of what the Schweitzer Fellowship does. And so I still remember one of the very first patients that I saw came to me and knew that she had hepatitis C for her entire life. And she said something that's going to stick with me, I think, for the rest of my life. She said, "I'm just really tired of living feeling like I have poison blood." And it just ripped my heart out because I knew exactly what she meant, even though I had never experienced what she had been going through. To feel like an outcast, to feel dirty because of their health, to feel like a burden on their family. And so from there, what I took is I need to have the most passion possible so that I can take this project to every single person at this clinic that needs our services. So Bradley and I went through and created a systematic protocol for screening and treating just about everybody we could find for hepatitis C. To date, we have treated over 20 people. We have screened over 500, and we really feel that we've made an amazing impact on the health and well-being of all of our patients here at the St. Vincent's Clinic through that project.
I am honored to introduce Pancho Arguelles this afternoon for the 2021 Servant Leader Award. Before moving to the United States in 1997, he worked on human rights issues in Mexico and Central America. After coming to the U.S., he co-founded Fe y Justicia Worker Center, a community organization for low-wage immigrant workers, and for the past 15 years has worked tirelessly to grow the capacity of Living Hope Wheelchair Association. Pancho exemplifies the values of the fellowship, working to empower communities by focusing on their needs and envisioning a future where all people are equally valued and have access to the resources needed to live healthy and fulfilling lives. I have come to see his true humanitarian activism as we are both a part of the Houston Immigration Legal Services Collaborative that is focused on ensuring that clients are receiving equitable services. Please join me in welcoming Pancho Arguelles.
My name is Pancho Arguelles, well, Francisco Arguelles, they call me Pancho. I am originally from Mexico City. Right after high school, I was invited to serve as a rural teacher in the mountains of southern Mexico, and that really got me on a path to try to be with community. And Living Hope, it's a group of immigrants who suffer spinal cord injuries. After 1 year and a half that they started themselves, me and my wife came in contact with them. She started teaching English, and then I started being an advisor and trainer for them. And over the years, I got more involved, and eventually they asked me if I could be their volunteer executive director, which I did gladly, and we kept building. When people feel included, respected, loved, and a sense of belonging, that is very important for immigrants with disabilities who suffer many forces that marginalize and invisibilize you and oppress. It's like you are a person of color, you are a person with limited income, you have a disability, and you are an immigrant during these past 10 years in Texas. That means a lot of hate and marginalization is coming your way. So building a community where people can experience being together with others in dignity and love is very powerful. In Chiapas, there is this movement called the Zapatistas, and they have a definition of leadership that says that to be a leader is to command by obeying. So my definition of leadership is one that understands that being a leader is to command by obeying, like the Zapatistas say, and also that being a leader is to be part of a community and be accountable to the community, and it's about collective leadership. I really do not think that you can be a leader, a servant leader, if you are not building collective leadership, because then you are just based on individual leadership. You're creating conditions that are going to make it very hard for the organization when you leave. So it's about creating collective power, and it's also about experiencing and building community. I think we need young people in the medical professions and the medical world that come from the communities that they're going to be serving. So the universities and medical institutions need to create the conditions for youth from vulnerable communities to be successful studying and becoming doctors and nurses and social workers. And we need young people connected to vulnerable populations for many reasons. One is to provide their vision, their passion, their creativity to address the needs and solve the problems together with those communities. And the other is that there is a lot of wisdom that you can find among vulnerable populations that this society really needs. And young people are exposed to a lot of toxic worldviews through their education and through their career. So working with vulnerable populations opens our mind and our heart, if we're lucky, to try to see the world from a different perspective. The Schweitzer Fellowship right now, when you look at the room, like when I was invited to do the keynote presentation, I saw the big majority were young people of color. And one reflection I got is like, this is great that there is more people of color, of communities that have been historically marginalized and still face a lot of uphill battles, that they are receiving this support and opportunities to do better in their careers and profession, but also to be community together, to support and accompany one another, navigating institutions that were not created for us by us, which is something we need to remember. That is still in the medical profession, there is still an inertia of what is considered authority and good and valid, and it tends to be white, it tends to be male, and it tends to be maybe also like from affluent socioeconomic status. So by diversifying who gets access to the fellowship, we diversify and validate different experiences and perspective and open connections. And it is very important that the fellows establish strong connections that will accompany them through their careers so that they can keep opening doors. After they get in, they make sure to put a foot in the door and let as many people behind them. Collective construction of a world where many worlds fit, when everybody has access to all rights.
We've been lucky enough to see a tremendous impact from the Albert Schweitzers in the community that we serve here at New Hope Housing. New Hope Housing serves individuals and families who are on a low income or no income. They have tremendous needs around food insecurity, engagement, workforce development, and we've been working with the Schweitzers to address some of the really critical baseline needs that so many that are experiencing homelessness and then transition into permanent housing need. We've been doing this long enough to know that a roof and walls is an important first step to addressing homelessness, but there are so many needs that come after getting your key and accessing that home for the first time. And that's where the Albert Schweitzers have really been able to come alongside and make true and lasting impact with the residents that we serve together.
I think one of my primary, if not my $1 million cause is civil rights for all. I feel very strongly that all people should be created and treated equally. And so civil rights and fair justice is my big one. You know, it's interesting, everybody knew the name Albert Schweitzer, and I knew he did important work in Africa, but I didn't know anything about it here. And so the things that really triggered my interest was community health, underprivileged, fellowship and projects. And I think to be able to have healthy communities and communities that can grow and prosper with individuals and groups creates a common floor, which is health and well-being. The reason I was attracted to the fellowship and why it's important is because I think we need leadership and help for the next generation coming up to solve our world problems. They need to have people who care about them, who care about their concerns, and who support them not only financially, but emotionally and with the projects to create a structure. I think the fellowship creates a structure that people can thrive individually, and then that can go on toward our community. And I think that's imperative for us to have a better world.
These young people in the Albert Schweitzer program will be our future leaders, and for them to come into a community like New Hope Housing and learn skills of organizing, communication, developing a program, implementing that program, but then oftentimes troubleshooting the challenges and the boulders that often fall along the path when you're establishing a program with individuals and families who are sort of by definition disengaged. There's a reason that our families and individuals need the services they do, and that's because they've been forgotten by so many in our community. So to watch these young students come on site and develop the skills of organization and communication and outreach, I know that it will have a tremendous impact on their future. One of the reasons that we love working with the Albert Schweitzers is that their mission so closely aligns with New Hope's mission to serve the most vulnerable in our community. And the skills that one develops by going out and boots on the ground, service learning, is just something that you can't learn in a classroom.
Now that's some kind of greatness. Put another way, that's some kind of humanitarian. Dr. Ruth J. Simmons lives the words of Dr. Maya Angelou. When you learn, teach. When you get, give. And she typifies the words of Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who said, example is not the main thing in influencing others. It is the only thing. To all viewing, it is my privilege to introduce the unconquerable Houston Wheatley High School, Dillard University, and Harvard University graduate. First African-American president of an Ivy League institution, and Fifth Ward Houston raised most humble servant leader. Our Albert Schweitzer Fellowship Houston Galveston Humanitarian of the Year, Dr. Ruth J. Simmons.
I was very blessed to have the background I did because I grew up with very humble people. And my mother was a maid, and I grew up learning to be as a human being by watching her. And so she was a domestic worker who sometimes went to people's homes to clean, but she also took in ironing at our home. And when she would get these mounds of ironing, as a child, watching her, I thought, what a thankless task. But then I thought, but look at how she's doing it. She's not hurrying through the task. She's taking every item and giving it the full measure. So she did say to me, whatever you do, do it well. But imagine seeing up close her doing it. Imagine her saying to me, though this was a thankless task and she was working as a maid and she had no rights for most of her life. I want you to always respect people no matter who they are and no matter where they come from. Imagine learning on the ground and having that in your storehouse. Education is an absolute game changer. We won't ever be able to assure that every human being in this country will have the same aspirations, the same profile. We can't assure that. Not and preserve the economic system that we have. But we can assure certain things, and that is, just because someone is born in Fifth Ward and they go to certain kinds of schools and they have a very insular life, you cannot assign to them from that very moment that their chances in life are circumscribed by that, as long as you give them a proper education. You can't. So the only fair thing to do is to give people access to education, because it's only then that you know what people are capable of doing. Secondly, education is more important than getting a job. Education is also enlightenment. And when you've got people who can do that, you don't have people who are angry people, who want to destroy other people, who want to denigrate other people, who want to ensure that only their tribe gets access to good things. And so if you provide that for every child, they will have more knowledge. They'll be able to understand their context better. They'll be able to reason. You know, one of the things that's a great problem for us in this country is that we don't seem to be able to tolerate a difference of opinion. And I see people every day who are so enraged because somebody expresses a difference. And yet, if we educated well, we could educate that out of people. And the idea that we would give people the opportunity to understand themselves better, to understand where they fit in the world, to understand how they can contribute to the world, just allows them to walk through life with a lift.
Hi everyone, I'm very excited to announce, one, my name is Tiffany Ross and I'm the new elected board chair for the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship Greater Houston. And second, I am thrilled to announce that after an extensive search, we have selected Dr. Andrea Link as the new executive director of the Schweitzer Fellowship. Dr. Link graduated from Brown University, then received her medical degree from Stanford University School of Medicine. After her residency in pediatrics at Stanford, she and her husband moved to Houston, where she joined Texas Children's Pediatric Associates. She found herself drawn to the underserved and the social determinants of health, so she joined Health Care for the Homeless on their Jail and Reach project. From this experience, she developed and implemented Healthy and Whole, an award-winning program which provides women exiting prostitution and human trafficking with comprehensive trauma-informed health and wellness programming. She has long advocated for the underserved, testifying in front of the Texas Supreme Court on mental health reforms and presenting her research on the needs of women exiting the criminal justice system at national conferences. She also brings a long history of mentoring students with teaching appointments at Baylor College of Medicine and the UT School of Public Health. Dr. Link knows the fellowship well, having served as the board chair for the past 5 years. We are excited for her to carry on the legacy of Albert Schweitzer and lead this organization into its second decade.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.
The mission of the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship is to train our emerging health leaders to serve and empower vulnerable people to build healthier communities and live healthier lives.
It's important for people to consider donating to the Schweitzer Fellowship because our projects are designed to be sustainable and transformative systems. We're not coming in and creating one little thing and then leaving patients high and dry afterwards. We're trying to create systems that last.
People should give to the Schweitzer Fellowship because it is an opportune time to invest in healthcare. We currently see, being in a pandemic, how important it is to have health leaders who are conscious and aware.
Whatever's being donated is going to that community, is going to those students, and are building up a generation of professionals who are going to be able to continue that project going on. It's always that little start you need. What the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship is doing for me and for Dakota is definitely going to affect how my professional career continues.
One of the things we are working on with these fellows is to really look at their future patients the same way we were training them to look at their communities. Look for who they are. Don't just assume that one size fits all. Listen to their stories. Find out what's important to them, not what you think is important.
So what I can tell you is that my life would have looked a lot differently if I had never come to UTMB, and I never would have come to UTMB if it weren't for the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship, and specifically Jacob Moran, a Fellow for Life. I plug in and see as many students as I can as Albert Schweitzer Fellowships and give them all of the mentorship and opportunities they need in order to make an impact on our community. That just isn't possible without the funding to take care of our students. So please absolutely give to the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship. It works.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.
Schweitzer Fellowship works.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.
Schweitzer works.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.
The Schweitzer Fellowship works.